which is our lanes, but also the revising the policies, which from what I understand, we haven't done that in 15 years. We also, the community engagement that the working group put together so that trustees could hear from the community, and also having the student reports actually also came from trustees. So just a deep sense of gratitude. And I look forward to the continued progress that we're going to make as a team. For the first time, all of us are returning, at least that I know of. So this team of 12 will be even more powerful because we are going to be starting not from a place of beginning, but of continuing and being better. So thank you so much. I would also just like to close and congratulating Trustee Cavazos. We were at the Nevada Association of School Board Conference last week. All the trustees from all over the state of Nevada gathered, and she was awarded the Veteran Board Member of the Year award. So just like the president. With that, we will move on to item 2.01, student reports. This is not an action item. Ms. Sierra, I'll ask you to make the introductions.
Madam President, members of the board, Kirsten Sierra for the record. We are very excited tonight to have our next two student presenters with our student board reports. So our first presenter is from Canyon Springs High School, representing Trustee Henry from District C and Trustee Barron from North Las Vegas. Our second presenter is from Indian Springs High School, representing Trustee Dominguez from District B and Trustee Satori from Clark County. These students are excited to share a few highlights about their school communities and give us a glimpse into the energy, creativity, and spirit that makes their campuses thrive. So please join me in welcoming. We're going to start with our student speaker, Braylon Russell.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, and community. My name is Braylon Russell. I am a senior and the student body president at Canyon Springs High School. I am honored to share with you all today some of the important progress and initiatives that reflect our students' growth, leadership, and innovations happening at my school. I want to first thank you all for your attendance and the ongoing commitment that you show for the success of our schools. I would also like to extend my appreciation to Mr. Neil Ballant, Coordinator of Engagement and Events, and my principal, Mr. Canfield, for the dedication they show in creating opportunities such as this for students like me. Now to begin, Canyon Springs High School has shown great progress within the past few years that I myself have been there. The things that I will highlight for you today are things that I myself have realized, as well as the students and staff on our campus. Currently, we have 7 magnet programs coupled with an array of CTE programs. We've also seen an increase in dual credit opportunities with over 20 to 25 dual credit classes offered in partnership with CSN, UNR, and UNLV. Our AP programs also continue to grow and thrive as well. In addition, Canyon Springs is proud to be the only high school at the time that has implemented the homegrown teacher program. This initiative, now in its second year, operates in partnership with the Silver State Education Foundation and allows students to earn up to 30 college credits while still in high school. Its purpose is to build a pipeline of future educators to, in return, come back to serve the Clark County School District, helping address the teacher shortage here. We do this all at Canyon Springs while still being a comprehensive high school, providing all of the resources a traditional high school would provide. Our clubs have also shown tremendous impact on our student culture and engagement. I'd also like to recognize a new club that we implemented this year, Alpha Unity, a sisterhood organization focused on leadership and empowerment, service and giving back, academic support, and building meaningful friendships. Already, they've organized food drives, potlucks, breast cancer awareness events, and more. Our student council has also worked very hard to provide fresh new ideas for our campus, giving our student body something new and exciting to look forward to. This year, we introduced themed football games, unique spirit weeks, and interactive crowd activities at our assemblies to boost our school spirit. I'd also like to recognize our Black Student Union with over 50 plus members that have been very successful this year. While there are dozens of events happening on our campus each week, these are some of the important highlights that I wanted to share with you today. As I wrap up, I want to emphasize how proud I am of Canyon Springs and the students there and the growth that we made together. None of this, though, would be possible without your support and the dedication from you guys and the students and staff on our campus. So thank you for giving students like me the opportunity to share our accomplishments with you.
Thanks, Braylon, and we do want to recognize that Braylon's principal, Mr. Canfield, is here today to cheer her on. And next we have Peyton Boren from Indian Springs High School.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peyton, and I am a senior at Indian Springs Schools. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share some great things happening on our campus. I'm delighted to say that are thriving academically, socially, and as a community. First, I'd like to recognize our groundskeeper, Mr. Sis. Our campus has never looked better. He keeps our green spaces healthy, clean, and beautiful, and his recent plantings have made the school a more inviting place for everyone. I also want to highlight our library, which continues to be one of the strongest parts of our school. Thanks to Mr. Sieverts and Ms. Tristan, the library remains clean, organized, warm, and truly welcoming space for students of all ages. Our community engagement is also strong. This year's Thanksgiving food drive and holiday toy drive, both in partnership with our volunteer fire department, collected donations that will directly support local families in need. Academically, we have made important progress with new math teachers and consistent instruction. Our math scores have already improved. Our smaller class sizes also allow for deeper learning and more one-on-one support. Because of this growth, our school star rating has already increased this year. In athletics, our 3 fall sports made it to regionals, which was a very big accomplishment for them. And our football team reached playoffs for the very first time in 11 years. This huge achievement reflects the hard work of our coaching staff and the ongoing support of our administration. Across grade levels, teachers have noticed a strong student work ethic. Our students are more engaged, motivated, and adjusting well to their classes. School morale is up with greater participation in dress-up days, assemblies, and our arts performances. And many students have even reported that they genuinely would like to go to school, which is reflected by our rising attendance numbers. I'd also like to acknowledge our college and career associate, Ms. Tristan, who's been critical in guiding students towards career pathways and post-secondary education opportunities. She's already helping seniors make meaningful plans for their life after graduation. Finally, I'd like to give a shout out to our new assistant principal, Ms. Armin. She's quickly become a well-respected member of our school. The students, staff, and fellow administrators alike all appreciate her support, her positivity, and her dedication to ensuring that our academics, our arts, and our athletics all have the resources they need to succeed. In closing, Indian Springs School is moving in a very positive direction. Our students are engaged, our staff is supported, our community is stronger than ever. Our school is becoming a place where students are excited to come every day. And once again, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to spend your time.
Peyton, and we have Peyton's principal, Mr. Welch, here tonight. And that concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Badron, we normally don't get comments, but I know this is your school. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was gonna say, Madam President, thank you very much. Of course, if anyone called point of order on me, it'd be totally appropriate. But I had a fantastic conversation with young Mr. Russell here. I know that he's gonna get a wildlife biologist and go to NAU, fantastic choice. The Canyon Springs, right down, my brother taught at Canyon Springs for a number of years. It's a school cut right from the same cloth that Rancho came from, right? But I know that she's planning on becoming an educator, possibly a JD herself. I didn't get her college, but it'd be fantastic if we could have like a limited amount of questions. I wouldn't want everybody questions because 11 questions times 2 an hour. But perhaps in the future we could also incorporate a small little bit of a question, maybe from 1 or 2 of the trustees, to flesh out a little bit more. These are 2 fantastic young people. They represent the very best, from what our school district can produce. And I really look forward to both of them taking their place in our society and our community. So I'm just saying that perhaps a little question. And if you would indulge me, did you already pick up your school?
Can you repeat that? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
did you already pick out your school, your college?
Oh, no, I haven't yet, but I have applied to a lot of them.
It's okay, that means you're about average. So, they always say wherever you go with the biggest, best deal.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you very much.
No worries. I just wanted to say thank you, express our gratitude. I would like to, forgot my train of thought, but to thank you, Madam Superintendent. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I have the pleasure of working with both of them on the Superintendent's Advisory Council, and they are amazing. They just demonstrated their capacity. I'm glad that you're chosen.
Thank you so much. With that, we're gonna, we are going to move to agenda item 3.0, the consent agenda item information. Did anyone not get a chance to fill out a public speaker card? Okay, see none, I'll go ahead and move that. I will entertain a motion of.
So I called earlier and requested a spot. Do I still need to fill out a form?
Let me see if we have you on the list. Can you share your name?
Richard Harfield.
Yes, we have that. And it's, your item will come in number 5.01. Thank you for calling in. With that, then I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Trustee Biassadi.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt agenda item 3.01.
Thank you, Trustee Babylon.
Second.
Thank you for, thank you, Ms. Caitlin, for checking. We actually do have one person for consent agenda items 3.06 and 3.13. Ms. Beagle, if you'd like to come forward.
Good evening, Tiffany Bimo for the record. I'm a CCSD social studies teacher. I'd like to speak briefly on agenda item 3.06 and 3.13, specifically 6122.2. That's a lot of numbers, sorry. When we talk about critical labor shortages, we often focus on staffing numbers, but these conversations are also about how instructional work is understood, supported, and sustained across disciplines. I want to highlight the role of social studies teachers, particularly in the areas of reading, writing, analysis, and synthesis. Strong social studies instruction is deeply literacy-based. In our classroom, students read complex primary and secondary sources, analyze documents, maps, and data, and write regularly, arguments, evidence-based responses, theses, essays, etc. This is not supplemental literacy work. It is embedded, discipline-specific instruction that builds critical thinking and communication skills students use across all content areas. As the district continues to address staffing and retention challenges, it's important that this instructional load is clearly recognized and valued as part of those conversations, which brings me to 3.13. I support Tier 1 curriculum, standards alignment, and clear instructional resources. Alignment matters, and teachers need high-quality tools to support student learning, but alignment does not have to mean flat, and flat instruction is not good instruction. Students remember learning when it is engaging, meaningful, and human. They remember discussion, inquiry, debate, simulations, project-based learning, and lessons that connect content to the world around them, known as relevance. My hope with the adoption of this regulation is that while we remain strong in our guardrails, we also preserve teacher autonomy, the ability to teach standards in ways that students will embrace and remember. When teachers are trusted to bring their voice, expertise, and creativity into the classroom within the standards, students read more, write more, and think more deeply. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. With that, then, seeing no others, I will entertain a motion. Trustee Biassadi, can you put yourself back in the queue? Thank you. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt agenda item 3.01.
Thank you, Trustee Babylon.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Please cast your vote. That motion passes 7-0. We will now move on to have Trustee Henry to please read the warrants.
Thank you, Madam President. The ratified warrants is listed in the bills payable transmittal and board memorandum number 909-25-26. The total amount of $208,128,170.04.
Thank you. With that, then we're gonna move to item 4.01. Did anybody not get an opportunity to fill out a public speaker card? Okay, we'll close that. I'm going to turn it over to our CFO, Mr. Deha. Ms. Bartolomew, good to see you. And this is going to be a presentation, discussion, and possible action on the adoption of the 2025-2026 amended final budget.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, I'm Justin Deha, Chief Financial Officer, and here to present the district's fiscal year 2026 amended final budget. We prepared this presentation of the amended final budget to provide you with an overview of the budget as it is represented in required state forms. Along with this presentation, you will find those state forms included as reference 4.01B and a summary of staff recommendation to approve the amended final budget, accompanied by a summary of changes from the current budget cycle, the fiscal year 2026 final budget, which is also included as reference 4.01A. Please note that reference 401D is the Spanish version of this evening's presentation. I'll now hand over the presentation to Diane Bartholomew, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, to go through the development process before I dig into the numbers.
Thank you. So, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Diane Bartholomew, Deputy CFO for the record. This presentation this evening is designed to give you an overview of the fiscal year amended final budget. During our overview of the budget development process, we will indicate for you how the amended final budget fits into the annual budget cycle, requirements for the development and submission of the budget, and provide an overview of the documents you are approving. We'll give you some details as to the development timeline for the amended final budget and how this budget compares to the final budget, which you approved in May. We'll also share with you some high-level details and comparisons as they relate to the district's general operating revenues and general operating expenditures, including how those changes impact the budget unassigned ending fund balance. All right, so let's begin the process. The district budget development cycle focuses on our fiscal year. You can see how the two shades of blue on this diagram illustrate the transition from one fiscal year to the next. We are in fiscal year 2026, which began July 1st and will end on June 30th, 2026. You will see that work begins well in advance of the start of the fiscal year in July. Last April and May, the board approved the tentative budget and final budget, both of which were developed and approved before the beginning of the fiscal year for which the budget's represented. You can see how both the tentative and final budgets were developed based on projections for what the end of fiscal year 2025 was projected to look like before the fiscal year was completed. We utilize projected revenues for the upcoming year, including revenues that are based on projected student enrollment for the upcoming school year, and we utilize projected expenditures and beginning fund balance based on an ongoing analysis of expenditures in the in-process fiscal year. But without actual enrollment and with calculating projections based on layers of other expected room for amendment of those budgets once we have actual figures. Those actual figures allow us to develop an amendment to that final budget approved in May, which is what you have before you for approval tonight. For the development of the amended final budget, we now have projected expenditures that can be calculated based on audited actual expenditures from fiscal year 2025, which the board just reviewed and approved last month, in fact. And projected revenues can be calculated based on actual average daily enrollment from the first quarter of the school year. So the amended final budget represents a revision to our projected revenues and expenditures for this current fiscal year. The amended final budget is required by NRS to be submitted before January first, so by December 31st to the Nevada Department of Taxation. After approval, the district will implement the amended final budget. The board will continue to review and approve expenditures and transfers through June 30th, and then we will present the audited actual information for fiscal year 2026 in November of next year. So you can see the annual budget development and accounting cycles overlap, and how each year's budget and actuals inform the development of future budgets. There are 4 primary requirements for the development of the budget. First, we have to prepare and document the information that is then documented on required state budget forms. We then have to present those forms to the board for approval and then submit those forms to the Nevada Department of Taxation. For the fiscal year 2026, the mission due dates are listed here. We had to submit tentative by mid-April, final by June 9th, and then amended final by December 31st. In fulfilling the first requirement to prepare and document budget information, the team has prepared and documented projections for revenue and other resources, projected expenditures, and any other required information. In fulfilling the second requirement to document the information on state budget forms, the Department of Taxation requires that we budget based on 2 fund types, governmental and preparatory funds, and we'll go over that shortly. Also, that if the ending fund balance is less than 4% of the actual previous year's expenditures for the general fund, we must include an explanation and a plan for the increase of that, but we are currently over that 4% mark. That the next item is that we classify required revenue and expenditures using the provided form number and description of each page arranged in a particular order, and that is how the reference material B has been laid out for you this evening. The first thing to know on this slide is the bottom reference should read 3 through 4 of 125. So apologies for that oversight instead of 4 through 5. This slide provides for you a listing of the funds that we report in the state forms. Again, reference 4.01B. You'll see on the bottom left corner of the slide a state forms reference. We have included these to allow you to cross-reference the actual forms with the overview we're providing in the presentation. We have attempted to align the order of information and the language on the slides with the order and language within the state forms to ease that cross-reference as well. The district's entire budget is represented in the materials provided for you tonight, and you will find revenue and expenditure detail for each fund within the state forms. I'll walk through those forms to orient you to the information. So as you look to the state forms, you can find the budget cycle, fund, and document title on the bottom left corner of each form, with the remainder of the form consisting of lists and tables of the actual budget information and calculations being submitted. As with the ACFR from November, I'll walk you through the state forms to assist with navigation. So on reference page 3 of 125 in your documents, which is Schedule B1, Enrollment and State Funding Formula, this page is the foundation of the entire operating budget because it calculates how much the state of Nevada is legally required to fund the Clark County School District. For fiscal year 2026, the state finalized the adjusted base per pupil amount of $9,501 dollars applied to a weighted enrollment of about 280,000 students. That produces a total adjusted base funding of $2.65 billion. When weighted funding for at-risk students, English learners, and gifted students is added, along with local special education support and transportation, The total state education funding equals $3.635 billion. Every instructional staffing decision, program allocation, and reserve calculation that follows is driven by this page. Next, we'll look at reference page 4 of 125, which is Schedule AA. This page aggregates every revenue source across the district, across every fund. For fiscal year 2026, CCSD's total budgeted resources equal $10.20 billion. After removing interfund transfers to avoid double counting, the district's net authorized spending equals $9.02 billion. $9.026 billion, excuse me. This tells the public not only how much funding supports schools, but also the scale of CCSD as a financial system, including operations, capital, grants, and enterprise funds. All right, next, we reference pages 6 and 7 of 125, the general fund. These pages show that general fund operations are overwhelmingly dependent on state revenue. Next, we'll look at reference pages 8 through 16 of 125, general fund. These pages show how general fund dollars translate into real operations. Here, we can also see plainly this district remains primarily instruction-driven. Operations continue to require a very large system-level infrastructure, and costs continue to be the largest operating expenditure. On reference pages 17 through 23, the special education fund. This page shows the district's operating solvency position and the structural cost of special education. Special education expenditures increased $21 million, and $16.2 million of that increase is supported by additional general fund transfers, reflecting gaps between state funding and mandated service costs. Next, we'll look at reference page 95 of 125, the debt service fund. This page shows the district's legal authority to use property tax revenue to pay outstanding bonds and debt. It confirms that dedicated revenues are sufficient to meet scheduled debt obligations for fiscal year 2026. The page is directly reviewed by bond rating agencies and determines whether borrowing remains affordable. Now, I'll hand it off to Mr. Dayhoff for the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you so much. Good evening, trustees. Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer. Again, for the record, I'll take you now through the financial pieces of the budget in the remaining slides of the presentation. As you mentioned earlier, you're seeing information about all of the district's funds. So this is the list of each fund with the FY26 budget amounts. The complete district budget is $9 billion. All these funds are reflected in state forms by revenue, followed by expense. However, what we are highlighting tonight are our major operating funds, general funds, special education fund, and our weighted funds, which are noted in bold and we'll dive into further in the subsequent slides. Note, please, that as we look at a $9 billion budget, our $4 billion in other funds are the primary funds where we start looking at is a more approximate total to our annual operating and recurring costs. So in thinking about the scale of district operations, that portion of the budget is typically targeted towards recurring spending. The general fund, nearly $4 billion, is the main operating account of the district and includes 4 main sources. Our state sources, which include the State Education Fund or the People-Centered Funding Plan, which includes a portion of special education and transportation revenue. Our local sources, which include things like donations, tuition, local taxes, and interest income. And our federal sources, which include federal impact aid, forest reserve monies, and Medicaid administration and reimbursement, excluding federal grants. Okay, so when you're talking about the general fund here, we're not looking at federal grants. These are specific federal sources. In addition to that, this also includes our medium-term bonding. You can see that by far the largest source of general operating revenue is and continues to be our state sources. In fact, over 80% of our general resources come from state sources. The other funding sources account for the remaining about 20% of our budget. Most of that state revenue is allocated through the PCFP, the People-Centered Funding Plan, The PCFP legislation lays out both how the state allocates funds to districts and to some extent how districts in turn allocate those funds to schools. Our special education budget is projected at $748 million. This amount includes revenue directly from state sources. You'll note on the slide that a large portion of the fund sources associated with special education show as a transfer from other funds. This is because the state administers our funds by providing them first into the general fund, and then we then transfer that special education allocation out of the general fund and into the special education fund to account for it properly. That's reflected as a transfer. In addition to that, and as Ms. Bartholomew mentioned with regard to special education spending on the reference slides, CCSD contributes approximately an additional $135 million in total this year in general fund dollars in order to continue to meet our maintenance of effort requirements and our obligations to spend for special education funding. Our next slide represents our weighted funding provided through the PCFP. Weighted funding provides additional state funding to schools for specific student populations, including English language learners at $213 million, gifted and talented at $21 million, and at risk at $178 million. In entirety, these funds total approximately $412 million, which includes a small portion of support from the general fund. The opening fund balance reflects unspent funds from the prior year, which are essentially just being carried forward. The per pupil amounts from the PCFP have been allocated for the 2025-2027 biennium, and these revenue amounts have some changes from the prior year. These state education funding resource projections are based on the fall actual enrollment, the 83rd legislative session biennium funding in Senate Bill 500, and our current school year weighted fund. Now, having gone through resources or revenues of the budget, we talk about money in, now we talk about money out. So this slide shows a summary of FY26 balanced budget of resources and expenditures, which we are presenting to you for approval this evening. These also are the changes on the slide from the final budget and also noted in the narrative section of reference document 401A. So let's transition to talking about the expenditures. First, breaking down our total end fund balance. To be clear, when we see a total end fund balance, that's not necessarily school carry forward that we're talking about, nor is it a giant tranche of ending fund balance. It actually is comprised of several different funds within the district. As you can see, and as you can see on state forms, we'll talk about our general fund ending balance closer to the $150 million mark. That's reflected on the slide on top. But in addition to that, debt service comprises a large portion and the largest portion of our unassigned ending fund balance. This also includes other resources like our student activities at $37.67 million, which reflects the district's recognition of the revenue that's held in the school level accounts. In addition to that, we have our risk management, graphic arts, and food services. And again, these are not budgeted expenditures. These are the last of the fund balances. So what do those budgeted expenditures look like? As we mentioned, the general fund being the main source of the operation of the district, it also illustrates how significant the majority of our funds are in supporting position costs for our schools. And again, when we think about positions, it's important to think about that not just in terms of salaries, but also in terms of benefits, where, for example, most employees have about a 41.1% additional part of their compensation above salary towards benefits. So it's important to think about the totality of compensation when we think about paying our personnel, paying our employees. And so that's how you see that reflected here across the salaries and benefits. Within the special education fund, we see that most of the expenditures as well are projected to support staff positions, 96.7%, which provide instruction support and transportation to students with disabilities in alignment with and in accordance with federal law. And similar to the general and special education funds, the majority of weighted funds are also consumed by salary and benefits to support pupils identified in those weighted categories. One of the last elements of the state forms for approval by the board tonight is the schedule of transfers. So as I mentioned earlier, in reference specifically to special education, there are obviously more transfers than just that, but this is the total schedule. These are necessary to supplement those funds that need additional funding, like the special education fund, or to properly account for revenue as it comes in and we move it into categories. Although, for example, the district receives special education and science learning gate funding, transfers from general are still required to cover some of the costs in those areas. On our next slide, when we talk about the comparison between the final budget that the board approved in May and the amended final budget in front of you, we want to call specific attention to exactly what is different. So the general fund opening fund balance decreases by about $164 million in the amended final budget. That change is associated primarily with three drivers. First, $80.7 million difference in school carry forward compared to what's projected in the final budget. Again, when we talk about our final budget and the numbers that are used for the final budget, carry forward dollars for last year were projected here. And again, those were continued to true up over the course of the summer and all the way through the end of the summer, at which point we now have a final accounting of school expenditures and final carry forward posts. In addition to that, we have $20.8 million in medium-term bond fund carry forward to reflect spending in our bonds, which we hope to see. And in addition to that, and this actually refers back to our ACFR presentation as well, our auditors from Bailey made reference to this year, where we made an accounting policy change with regard to prepaid tax. And so in order to do that, we have to post the balance twice. And so what you're seeing here is the removal of that. And so that's why we want $1.6 million. Those are the three main drivers in terms of ending fund balance difference between what you saw in May and what you were looking at today. In terms of fiscal health, as we start to move toward the end here, one final check that we have, again, that we referenced during the ACFR presentation, is whether and to what extent our ending fund balance and our prior year actual expenditures take up a share of that ending fund balance, as well as a percentage of our how much of our ending fund balance is a percentage of our revenue. Those two help us understand, as our auditors explained, what our runway is, how's our cash flow moving, and how are we in terms of this district ability to continue to support our planned expenditures. These also remain important figures for us as a district because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a $9 billion budget. And so in addition to the operating revenue that we have, the dollar to support schools or bond, because capital dollars, that's all based on largely our ratings and the rating systems, which require us to continue to show progress toward financial health and fiscal health as a district, which a district has done. And happy to show today that we have met the requirements and measures of financial health. We present to you a balanced budget. We have to make sure our unassigned ending fund balance meets those two separate requirements of Nevada law and district regulation, which it does. We present this for your approval, and at this time, we're happy to respond to any questions you have.
Thank you, team. Questions from our colleagues? Trustee Brown.
For the public's sake, I guess when we see the oh, by the way, a fantastic presentation, Madam President. When we see the very large ending fund balances in 21, 22, I guess that could be attributed to COVID money coming in, right?
Trustee Brown, thank you for the question. Just to help for the record, that's exactly right. So if you're trying to understand the narrative, and I think one of the helpful ways of reading that slide is exactly that. It really tells the story of where revenue and cash flow swells during COVID under the three tranches of ESSER funding, and how those have dissipated back towards where the both balances but mirror each other closely.
We're getting back towards normality, so to speak.
Yes, trustee.
Where's our unemployment? What percentage again? I think I've asked this one before. You told me before in a previous meeting. But again, for the public, what is our ending fund balance percentage right now?
We'll be at 4.25%.
And that's considered pretty healthy, isn't it?
Trustee, yes, I think trustee, our rating agencies would prefer that we continue to move toward a higher balance. There are districts that have a higher amount of resources in that reserve. But we also have to be mindful of the fact that at the end of the day, these are resources in support of students, learning and instruction. And so we have to be both measured, careful, prudent, but also balance it with the needs and the expectation that we're spending those resources.
And I'm pretty sure we have maintained our pretty good bond rating, correct?
Trustee, that's correct, and we were actually able to have an improvement in our outlook with a request for evaluation this past fall, this past August. So those continue to be strong, and we hope to keep them so, and frankly, we hope to continue to improve.
To decipher the Star Trek talk here, basically, we're gonna be able to refinance some of our loans to make things a little bit more affordable for our residents. Right?
That's correct, and to take advantage of interest rates the same way we all, do in our own personal lives, and to stretch our dollars, to stretch the public's dollars more in service of kids.
Scotty, you're an amazing financial engineer. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Dayhoff, and Ms. Keaton for this presentation. And thank you for explaining again. I know we went over this during our briefing, was the general fund and the drop of 164.3 million, and breaking it down again for everybody. So I really appreciate that. One of the things that I was hoping we'd get a follow-up on was the student activity fund. And I know I searched my email to make sure I didn't miss it again, but we didn't get an answer on that.
Thank you, trustee. So the student activity fund, and go to the presentation, and I'm happy to do so. As well. Just to refer that. So the student activities, that 37.6 consists of a donation, ticketing, events, and the other sources that a school will raise on site. Those are effectively the district's recognition of the school bank accounts for those site generated funds. There was a change in 2019 that required the districts under GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, to change, which is the governing board that assigns public sector agencies the financial transparency standards that we all as public agencies use in service continuing to strive towards transparency. So the board released a change where we had to, as a district, begin to recognize, which we show in both within our reports, the student activity funds that were in those bank accounts. So since then, and what you see here, that 37.668, that's the site generated funds, it's the donations, ticketing, purchasing materials at school, all of those in the school source. Site generated funds.
Thank you. And I know you had answered my question also about the special education fund to during our briefing. And I really appreciate that we are on time for our state regulatory requirement that we have, and that we are meeting all of our requirements. So I really appreciate the teamwork. So thank you.
Thank you, trustee Esparza.
So I did not attend my briefing once in a long time because I was at schools. So I do have a few questions. I apologize, Mr. Day, but what I do want to say is thank you for the clarity on special ed, because I've been asking, like, we want to see what do those numbers actually look like. I'm looking and I have a wondering on slide, it says page 26, where it shows the graph between the general fund and the ending fund balance. I'll give you a chance to get, yep, that's it. What I'm wondering is, because of the fact that we spend 748 million for special education, or that's allocated, and we as a district pay out of our own general fund, you said 135 million. I'm curious to see, could we get a graph to show over the last even 3 to 5 years? Has there been an increase, especially in expectation of resources and demand for, and I ask you that because having visited schools, I hearing conversations about the increase of units and the resources that are needed to be able to support the education and the least restrictive environment for our kids. So I'm curious, could we have a graph like that is my request for special ed specifically.
So, trustee, thank you for the question, and always in deference to Superintendent Ebert. We certainly have the data with regard to both federal, state, and our supplemental, in part because that speaks to our maintenance of effort contracts.
And here's the reason I'm asking for this is because we attended the trustee conference, and we had an amazing presentation by a special education expert. And we know that federal funds are not and have not met the demand and where we should have allocations for even any, I would say, on a national level. And my thinking is, how do we have these conversations at the state level with our elects to show them over time the expenses and maybe the amount of funds that we've had to expend out of our own general fund, specifically for special education. And that's why we're asking for that. So I just would say to you that that would be helpful after having heard that presentation last week. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Johnson.
Yeah, I had three questions, and thanks Ramona for bringing it out, because it's actually a train of thought I had. First one, it'll be larger. Just how does our budget compare to our districts? So New York, Miami, LA, Chicago, as it relates to the proportion of our overall budget to student size? Are we in line with how they with their proportions? Are we larger, smaller, et cetera?
Trustee Johnson, thank you for the question. Justin Dayhoff for the record. We are, in general, we actually pass more proportionally as a share of our budget to schools than any of our larger peers, in part because of the provisions of NRS 3AG 469, 2017, 2019, forgive me on the years. But as a district, we are largely unique in the share that we provide through a formula to schools.
And then the other question, the transfer of funds from the general fund to sped account, does that money include litigations?
Transfers, thank you for the question, trustee. So funds, resources paid out usually associated with payments for risk come out of the risk management fund, which is an internal service fund. So we resource the internal service fund via two primary mechanisms. One is it's the OIM, which is jargon for a rate that we apply universally on positions that is used to offset workers' comp, other expenses that come up. And then in addition to that, we have a direct assessment on the general fund to help support what we have and what we show as our current potential liabilities. So we assess, we do a full analysis of our current and potential liability. And then one change we actually just made as a result of Ms. Kane, the compliance monitor, and her work with the district, is we, in addition to that, modified our direct assessment rate on the general fund to increase this year and to reassess that over the coming years to make sure that not only are we including both our known liability costs that we have an ability to take as assumed anything that's projected to build into our budget to make sure that if that were to come through, we're not in a place where those resources have to come from somewhere else.
Okay. And then last one, this one is on mine with Ramona. Just, and I want to ask you to opine a bit. If you can do some projecting for us and thinking about what might be the largest risks to us, given it feels like we have a bit of a razor thin margin for how we created our budget, and the costs have gone up, especially as we just mentioned, special education costs continue to rise. I know the cost of services from our partners, labor partners, will continue to rise. Can you describe like what some of the risks might be if we kind of stay at the same rate of revenue, and like what we might need to do differently to ensure that we can stay
forgive me for, if you will, trustee, but any opportunity to bring in some fun new jargon to the conversation. Education has something called cost disease. In economics, it's industries that are heavily human driven, because in an industry that is and will forever be human driven, there are certain components that you can't autonomize, that you can't make mechanical, right? And given that, generally speaking, those budgets over time have a different rate. So when we look at education spending, returns on education spending over time, that's one of the things that's important to consider, is that very fact. For that reason, this year when we, in partnership with our collective bargaining units, we were mindful of what our projections are for this biennium. We know one of the advantages of the biennium here at Nevada is having some stability and predictability with regard to, at least on the state side, what we can anticipate, and knowing where, even if there are challenges, at least we know where those could be. But in addition to that, within the team, working and building upon what we've done, the team has done around budget and rebuilding the budget process, making sure that we as a district are also looking at projecting what those scenarios can be like, especially under multiple cost considerations. The state's PCFP is a revenue-based model. And so, it becomes important for us as a district to continue to pay attention to that. But as far as our district goes, we continue to work both naming and revising, as we talked about with you, the district's resource allocation formula. So making sure that whatever we are doing here, business rules are clear, the intent within the formula is clear, and that going forward, we know where
appreciate you sharing, like, just globally how that's gonna happen. Obviously, we don't control some things that are outside of our control. I really appreciate the way that you're focused on being cost control as you're able to, but there are costs that are outside of our control and they continue to rise, especially as the larger economy shifts and there are costs that are applied with that. So thanks for the hard work with making sure that we can do our part here, and then also explaining so well how we need to make sure that we are providing the resources that we need inside the gathering resources to be able to provide the services that we need to. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions from trustees? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion. Trustee Esparza Strothigan.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to accept 4.01 fiscal year 2026 amended final budget as presented.
Thank you. Trustee Henry.
Thank you. I would like to second.
I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 4.02, public hearing on possible approval of revision to the 2025-2027 negotiated agreement between the Clark County School District and CCEA. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing and discussion and the possible action. Is there anyone that did not get a chance to complete a public speaker card for this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close that and turn it over to our general counsel, Mr. Okazaki.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, John Okazaki, General Counsel. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, in August of this year, you approved the new negotiated agreement for the CCEA. In that agreement, we had a provision, Article 23, I believe it was, that provided for post-ratification modification. The intent of this article was that the parties would continue to negotiate some of the other terms that were not as fiscally significant. And if we reached an agreement on any of those terms, that we would bring it back to you for official incorporation into the negotiated agreement. So what I'm bringing you to your attention tonight is four revisions to 4 different articles. I will tell you that we are still negotiating the PGS guide. That is still one that's open. I will also remind you that under Article 43, at any time, the parties can agree to reopen negotiations if we believe that a particular provision needs to be addressed before the biennium. But for tonight, we only have 4 articles that are being revised. In summary, Article 5.3 is removing an outdated reference to the term of one of the association officers. Article 12.10 revises terms on how civil and criminal proceedings against employees are addressed and how those records are managed. Article 26.2.3 adds the position of speech language pathologist to those who will receive a new salary placement upon their promotion or transfer to that new position. And Article 27.1 removes a very outdated reference to a year. And that is really all there is to this. We haven't answered any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the trustees? Trustee Cavazos.
Actually, I was already ready to make a motion.
Okay.
And to make sure,
And second,
and to make Mr. Kozaki, so I'll hold on.
trustee Dominguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. I was hoping, Mr. Okazaki could just go over briefly, what the changes were in Article 12 through 10.
Article 1210?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so this is regarding when one of our employees is charged with a crime or has a civil litigation filed against them. The idea here is that the terms that we've agreed on is that if the actual criminal charge or civil proceeding is dismissed and the employee is acquitted or found not guilty or innocent of all of the charges, then we will agree not to put any of those records in our records. They will not exist and they will not be reflected in our records because there was a finding of not guilty or innocent. The agreement is, though, if that the underlying concern, if there's independent evidence of that underlying concern that is still relevant to a disciplinary situation from the employment setting, we can use that evidence, like any other relevant evidence. Still, we're not going to include the actual criminal and civil proceeding documents in the file, but there is an understanding that that's relevant evidence. We can consider it in investigating and addressing any potential misconduct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the trustees? Okay, seeing none, trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Mr. Okazaki for bringing these back to us, as he had stated that he would, and I think that they are very straightforward. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept on 4.02.
Thank you for that motion for approval of the revision. Trustee Barron.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Please cast your vote. That motion passes 7-0. Next, we will move on to 4.03, public hearing on possible approval of the Indian policies and procedures for federal impact aid program, section 7003. Before I open it up, did anyone not get a chance to complete a public speaker card for this item? Okay, didn't have any. I'll close that. Dr. Mansell, I don't know who to start with, but you tell me.
That would be me. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members for the board, and Superintendent Ebert when she returns. For the record, Dustin Mansell, Chief Academic Officer. I am joined by Sam Scavella, who was our Assistant Superintendent of the Safe and Respectful Learning Environments and Opportunities Division, and Richard Savage, our Coordinator of the Indian Education Opportunities Program. Today, we are here to review and seek your approval of the updates to the Clark County School District's Indian Policies and Procedures as required by Federal Impact Aid, Section 7003. Before we begin, we would like to thank our Indian Education Opportunities Program team for their dedication and collaboration with our local tribal communities, the Moapa Band of Paiutes and the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe, as well as the Clark County and Johnson O'Malley Indian Education Committees. Their ongoing commitment continues to make a lasting impact on the success of our American Indian and Alaska Native students. Madam President, with your permission, I will turn over the presentation to Dr. Scavella and Mr. Savage, who will review the proposed updates for the board.
Thank you, Dr. Mansell. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, for the record, Sam Scavella. The Clark County School District has developed Indian policies and procedures to meet federal requirements for students residing on federally recognized Indian lands. These updates were created in collaboration with parents and guardians of American Indian and Native Alaska Native students, as well as representatives from the Moapa Band of Paiutes and the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe. The Indian policies and procedures are reviewed annually in accordance with the Federal Impact Aid Section 7003 and District Policy 1311. Section 7003 requires school districts to conduct an annual review of their Indian policies and procedures to ensure American Indian and Alaska Native students have equal access to the district's general education programs. It also provides a structured process for parents, guardians, and tribal representatives to give input on district programs and activities. The district works closely with local tribal representatives and the parents and guardians of American Indian and Alaska Native students to develop, update, and advance Indian policies and procedures that support general education programs and enhance the services of the district's Indian Education Opportunities Program. The proposed Indian policies and procedures were shared with both federal recognized tribes and parents and guardians of American Indian, Alaska Native students through emails, phone calls, events, and multiple public meetings.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, for the record, Richard Savage. The proposed updates presented tonight reflect our continued partnership with federally recognized tribes, Native communities, and families. Last year, there were several updates to the Indian policies and procedures. Tonight, we are here to present two updates. First, the name. Las Vegas Paiute Tribe of the Las Vegas Indian Colony has been updated to Las Vegas Paiute Tribe. The tribe made an amendment to their constitution, formally changing their name. Second, at the tribe's request, communication procedures have been revised. All correspondence will now be emailed to the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe Education Department, which will share the information with the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe Tribal Council and Las Vegas Paiute Tribe Education Committee. This is in addition to our Indian Education Opportunities Program communication, which includes direct emails and phone calls to parents and guardians of enrolled program students, as well as regular communication with our school-based program liaisons. At this time, there is no change with the communication to the Moab Band of Paiutes. Public notice for this hearing was published in the Las Vegas Review-Journal from November 27th through December 11th, 2025, allowing time for interested parties to attend tonight's meeting. With that, I thank you for considering these updates, which reflect our ongoing commitment to meeting federal requirements and improving educational opportunities for our American Indian Alaska Native students. At this time, we will pause and take questions from the board.
Thank you so much. Trustees, any questions? Trustee Barron.
Yes, thank you very much. At this time, do we actually have a count as to how many students are connected? I guess to first our Las Vegas tribe, and in general, how many other students we might actually have in the district that are maybe members of other tribes?
I can provide a count. Thank you for the question, Trustee Burrow. Richard Savage for the record. So I can provide a count for at the end of the first quarter right now. Those are students that make students that attend CCSD schools who may be members of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, members of the Moab Band of Paiutes, but also the district kind of goes above, and we consult with parents and guardians of all of our American Indian Alaska Native students. At the end of the first quarter is 566 students.
Thank you. Any other questions, trustees? Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't see any more questions, so I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you so much. Trustee Cavazos, did you have a question?
I actually just wanted to commend the team, Dr. Mansell, Mr. Scavella, Mr. Savage. I've attended many of the events for Indian education, and if any of my trustees have not had a chance, colleagues to attend one of these senior recognition ceremony is absolutely amazing. And it's an entire community that turns out. And yes, with that, I would like to make a second.
Thank you, Vice President Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I do commend the team. I mean, everyone on the team, those even tabling at events, because they are giving important information out to the community. So thank you to everyone. I would like to make a motion to approve the Indian policies and procedures for federal impact aid program, section 7003.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos.
I will second that.
I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we'll move on to 4.04, Notice of Intent, Clark County School District Regulation 4100. Did anyone not get a chance to complete a public speaker card for this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that and turn it over to Ms. Triana. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Roman Triana, Chief Human Resource Officer. For the record, tonight we are here to provide a notice of intent to amend Regulation 4100, relationships, interactions, and communication between district employees or representatives, volunteers, and students. Regulation 4100 was last revised by the Board of Trustees in 2020. Joining me tonight is Jason Ganoza, Assistant Human Resource Officer. The proposed amendments brought forth today will address aligning Regulation 4100, Section 1, background checks and CCSD badges with Assembly Bill 503 from the 82nd session of the Nevada Legislature, AB 503, which amended NRS 391.105, and Senate Bill 26 from the 83rd session of the Nevada Legislature, Senate Bill 26. This effectively removes the option for nonprofit organizations to receive a fingerprinting waiver, as well as it outlines 5 legislative amended exceptions. And with your permission, Madam President, I'll hand it over now to Jason Ganoza to walk us through these changes.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Jason Ganoza for the record. AB 503 requires volunteers from nonprofit organizations who will have unsupervised contact with students to comply with the district's fingerprint and background check requirements. Prior to AB 503, nonprofit organizations were provided an exception to the district's fingerprint and background check requirements. Now the exception only applies to public entities defined as federal, state, or local government entities. These adjustments in items D and E of Section 1 on pages 3 and 4. To be consistent with our practices for fingerprinting and background checks for volunteers under the authority granted by SB 26, independent contractors and vendors who have unsupervised contact with students may be required to submit to the district's fingerprint and background check requirements. This is a practice that the district already has in place, and the clarifying language is being included for consistency. You'll find this added to Section 1, subsection B on page 2. Section 1, subsection C, item 3 provides clarifying language that an employee of a business, agency, or organization that participates in a work-based learning program is not required to submit to the district's fingerprinting or background check requirements unless they directly oversee the participant or have unsupervised contact with a student in a work-based learning program. The amendments to Regulation 4100 will also incorporate other changes made by AB 503 to the 5 exceptions to the district's fingerprinting and background check requirements for volunteers of public entities who are likely to have unsupervised contact with students. This is noted in items D, E, F, G, and H on pages 3 through 6. In addition to clarifying that the exceptions only apply to public entities, AB 503 added that the investigation of the public entity must meet the following requirements for all 5 exceptions. Number 1, a Nevada statute expressly requires a volunteer who will interact with students at a school to submit a complete set of their fingerprints to the public entity and written permission authorizing the public entity to forward those fingerprints to the central repository for its report on the criminal history of the volunteer and for submission to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for its report on the criminal history of the volunteer. Number 2, the Nevada statute requiring the volunteer to submit fingerprints has been reviewed and approved by the Federal Bureau of Investigation as satisfying the requirements of federal law. And number 3, the investigation was conducted pursuant to the Nevada statute. These amendments are reflected in items D, E, F, G, and H. And as amended by AB 503, the 5 exceptions to the district's fingerprinting and background check requirements are: number 1, within the past 6 months, a federal, state, or local government entity has already determined that the volunteer is eligible to interact with students at a school as a volunteer. Number 2, the volunteer is employed by a federal, state, or local government entity that authorizes the volunteer to have unrestricted interaction with students as part of their official duties, which may include an unsupervised meeting with a student at a school. Number 3, within the last 6 months, a public entity on the State Department of Education's approved list has determined the volunteer to be eligible for employment, licensure, or to serve as a volunteer. Currently, NDE does not have an approved list, but we've been guided that this portion should remain as NDE is notified as they're currently working on the list. Number 4, within the last 6 months, a public entity not on the State Department of Education's approved list determined the volunteer to be eligible for employment or licensure to serve as a volunteer. Again, this is not a exception we currently use, as the list doesn't exist. However, as they're working on it, we've been guided that this should remain. And number 5, within the last 6 months, if a Nevada statute approved by the FBI expressly requires the volunteer to submit a complete set of fingerprints to another public entity, the district may waive its requirement. Again, this is not an exception that we currently use. However, it's been recommended for it to remain. In summary, the intent to amend Clark County School District Regulation 4100, relationships, interactions, and communications between district employees, representatives, volunteers, and students, is to properly align Section 1, background checks and CCSD badges, with AB 503, SB 26, and to clarify 5 legislative amended exceptions. At this time, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the trustees? Trustee Satori.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. So if approved, does this take effect upon approval?
We are already, thank you. We have already taken action on some areas of it, specifically the nonprofit exemptions. We worked over the summer to address that immediately, and we offered mobile fingerprinting services. We did everything we could, so we are now in compliance.
Okay, because that was kind of my question as well about how we'll be communicating it and providing those availability to get the fingerprinting done, so we're not losing volunteers. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the briefing too. I wanted to ask a question that I asked during our briefing, which is to clarify that this is about more fingerprinting, not less fingerprinting. It's about more security for our kids, not less. So if you could elaborate more.
That is correct. Previously to AB 503, nonprofits were allowed an exception that is no longer in existence. So all of our nonprofits that we partner with are being fingerprinted. So yes, more people are being fingerprinted in background check.
Thank you.
Trustee Esparza-Struffigan.
So I think it's important to define, like when it says specifically unsupervised interactions with our students, would you give us those examples of who those individuals might be and why, you know, we are making these adjustments, because their safety is of most importance?
Yeah, so unsupervised interaction with students means they've been fingerprinted, background checked, and basically we have proof they are badged. This is their proof that they've been fingerprinted and background checked. This would allow unsupervised contact with students because we verified a background check. Some people may come on to campuses as a non-badged volunteer at the discretion of the school administration, and school administrators understand that these individuals are not allowed to have unsupervised contact with students.
And I think that's important to define that for our community, because we have Nevada Reading Week coming up in March. And those individuals are coming in for one moment of time to share a story, which we love, and we want them all to be a part of that process. There's still a procedure, and there's a screening and there's vetting that happens when they enter a school. But I appreciate you for making sure that there's some clarity around that, and that our nonprofit partners will also be a part of the screening for fingerprinting. Thank you so much for the work.
Thank you. Any other questions from trustees? All right, then I'm going to entertain a motion on 4.04. Trustee Barron.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve Clark County District Regulation 4100. Trustee Dominguez.
I'd like to second.
I have a first and a second. Can you please cast your votes? That motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much, Ms. Triani. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to item 5.01. This is public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. Did anyone not get a chance to complete a public speaker card for this? I know we have people signed up to speak, and so with that up, oh, go ahead, Ms. Lisa. Thank you so much. First, Miss Ira Sturberg, are you in the audience, Ira? No? Okay, how about Jamie Rossman? Did I say that right? I might have messed it up. I'm sorry. All right, Jamie, and then, Ms. Stephanie, you're in the audience. We have another, podium right here. Please help me. Oh, no, that's for Ms. Stephanie over here. Please help me to, pronounce your name.
Rawson.
Rawson. Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Hi, good evening. I just want to start by saying I don't really want to be here. My jam is enthusiasm, positivity, but I have to bring an issue today, that I don't believe any of the consequences were intended, but the impact is clear, and so I just want to talk about it today. In August, a brilliant group, my name is Jamie Rawson, East Career and Technical Academy, learning strategist, achievement coach. In August, a brilliant group of East Tech mechanical technology students came to us with an idea that they were very proud of. A car show to raise money for a field trip where they could go and see some large-scale industrial operations in action. Their program doesn't take many field trips, and even though there are instructional reasons for that, students often feel overlooked. On top of that, the world still holds real biases against the technical trades. I see it in my own husband's 30+ years in the industry, and our students carry that weight. They understand how complex and technical their work is, even when sometimes others don't. So when these students proposed a festival essentially connected to their identity and learning, we of course said yes. East Tech hosts festivals, in my opinion, better than almost anyone. We follow every CCSD guideline. We have additional safety protocols that we use at our school. And so these students made a flyer, got busy, shared it, and were excited. Less than 2 weeks before the event, risk management emailed our principal stating that the event could not happen. And the reason had to do with not being able to take on the liability of cars parked on a campus that were not CCSD property. I just want to be clear that cars that are not CCSD property are parked on campus every day. We have worked very hard over the last 3.5 to 4 weeks to get to yes. But the final condition that we were given is something that no other program or event has been asked to do. We have been tasked to ensure that every single car in the show that students want to show with their work has been tied to an instructional standard in mechanical technology. Our HOSA students don't have to do this for their winter festival. Our DECA students don't have to do this for their fall festival, and more. Only these students who already kind of feel overlooked were told that this event required additional justification. And the concerns and questions that risk management asked about what happens in our automotive shop raised even more concerns. Their questions made me wonder about the backgrounds for this work, what they do or do not understand about what happens in our shops, and who they report to. Automotive technology programs have existed in CCSD since 1955. If risk management does not understand how we keep students safe every day, they've got to come and see it and learn for themselves. Through all of this, no one outside East Tech administration has contacted these students not to explain or support or acknowledge the way they feel or the harm that they feel. Meanwhile, other high schools have hosted car shows this year, and others will do it again. So what is the message that students are supposed to take?
Thank you so much.
I have more to say, and I'll now to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Ms. Kinsley, after Ms. Kinsley, David Hurley, are you in the audience, David? Okay, you're more than welcome to come over here to this podium. Ms. Kinsley, please begin.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Kinsley. I'm one of the parents for my children's advocate. I'm here again. Feel crazy, feeling like I'm trying to get a different response. We are trying something different today. My children's advocate would like to invite everybody. But obviously there's something very wrong with CCSD. I hope kids either join the club to help get disassembled, or even more exciting, what MCA, my children's advocate, would love to do is help facilitate Jesus clubs in school. Because that's what we need more of in this school. We need more Jesus. We need less abortion. We need less Timu knockoff Antifas talking about the weird sex life that leaves you in diapers. That's what we need less of.
We need more Jesus. We need more young men, knowing that they're powerful, just like Jesus's disciples and our founding fathers. It's young men who are going to change this nation. And this next generation is really based, and they're not falling for any of this gaslighting, these perverts, this Marxism. They're not falling for it. So I'm joining all of you to save your soul. Save your soul, because what you do has consequences. This material life doesn't last forever. But you're going to have to answer to your maker for the decisions you've made and the children you've put at harm. CCSD is infested with satanic pedophilia. It's disgusting. There's no way you feel this bad on accident. No one's falling for it. Decades of failure. Or was it 200 million to go to English speakers? Why'd you come here if you can't speak the language? Shame on you. $30 million for PBS, when we have children from broken homes who could use that money to go to a counselor in school. You guys have a responsibility. You have a duty. And you will meet your maker and answer for what you did. And these people who fight for abortion and celebrate death, the kids see through this. The kids see, these are memes. When you go outside of this building, these are memes to the rest of the world. They shouldn't be taken seriously. They're a joke. They're soulless. And CCSD has a problem with satanic pedophiles. And I just would like to encourage everybody to join us tomorrow to combat this evil.
Thank you so much. David, you're next, and after David, Richard Harfield. You're okay?
I'm not gonna take long.
Please proceed, David.
I'm here in support of the students that Jamie was talking about. My name is David Turley. I'm a mechanical technology teacher at East Korea Tech Academy. And I want to give support to these students and let you know that this car show that we're talking about isn't new to us. We do the same thing every year with our senior presentations. We have cars lined up on our lot. There are student cars and other cars. And we have a way of tracking these vehicles, and not only that, tracking their movement, because of the fact that we don't want what you guys are afraid of to happen. Because we want the ability for these students to showcase what they do in this program with the community. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish. And then on top of that, give them a chance to gain some funds to be able to expand what they're learning in the school, outside the school. So that's my main idea for being here today. So hopefully you guys can reconsider this and really look hard at this. If you need to, please ask questions. We'll be happy to answer them. And I thank you for the time. I thank you for allowing me to come and speak.
Thank you, David. Richard, you're next, and after that, Sophia. Actually, there's no clapping on this. Please, you're welcome to use your shaking hands, or please, thank you so much. Sophia Vasquez, you're next, up here in the front. And Mr. Richard, please proceed.
I'm gonna read you an email that I wrote to Ms. Zamora here about a month ago that I never got responded to. Hello, I'm writing you with many concerns over the things taking place at Richard Rundle Elementary, including retaliation against my son and myself. I think it's important to start from the beginning. In April, there was a court order stating that I was the educational decision maker for my children, and that I was the only person allowed at my daughter's IEP meeting. The school failed to notify me of the meeting and failed to allow me to attend the meeting in clear violation of my parental rights and a court order. Obviously, this was upsetting. I considered legal action, but I declined. Fast forward to this school year. On or about October 9th, 2025, there was an incident on the playground with my 6-year-old son and another student, where Mr. Jerron Tharp from Rundle Elementary came to separate the kids. He grabbed my son with enough force that it left black and blue marks in the clear shape of fingers around my son's arms, and also marks under his armpits and on his side. While holding my son, he tried to escape and telling Mr. Tharp, "Let me go, you're hurting me, get off of me." Mr. Tharp apparently took this as a threat and proceeded to place my 6-year-old son in the CPI hold. Over 1.5 hours after the incident, I was notified by Jennifer Diamond that the restraint had been placed on my son, to which I demanded a meeting with the school. The following day, I sat down with Jennifer Diamond and Lynette Reese, the principal, and recorded our entire conversation. I demanded that the police be called so I could file a police report against the teacher. Mind you, my son was never suspended for the incident involving Mr. Tharp. The following Monday, I dropped my son off at school at 8:25, went directly to the office to get a copy of the incident report, and I was denied. Lynette Reese, she told me that I can go onto the parent portal and I can download it myself. And I said, Lynette, you don't understand. What if I don't have internet access, or what if I do not know how to use the internet? I am entitled to this paper. The next day, I got notice from the mother of my children that there was a trespass letter in my son's bag. So I was trespassed from the school, not because I threatened anyone, not because I touched anyone, not because I cursed. I didn't do anything to violate any laws, but simply because my voice was raised at an elevated level, because since I was a kid, I was actually born tone deaf. I had 16 surgeries before I turned 13 years old, and there's medical documentation. I spoke to the superintendent from my district, District 3, Emily Patosa. She informed me that Miss Lynette Reese can actually trespass people from the school district for any reason she wants, including their skin color, or the color of their clothes, or the color of their eyes, or any other reason, and that the school district was going to stand behind Lynette Reese. And I believe that this is a public place. We're funded by the public. I should not be trespassed. They are preventing my son from going to school on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays by telling me that I am not allowed on the school property to drop him off.
Thank you. And Mr. Turley, can you just say your name for the record right here in the microphone? Just say your name for the record.
My name is Richard Hartfield.
Oh, Richard Hartfield. I'm sorry, I had the wrong person. Thank you for correcting me. Next, we have Sophia and then Ms. Avilas. Are you still? We'll have you over here. Ms. Sophia, please proceed.
Good morning. My name is Sophia Vasquez. I am the Welding Club president at East Korean Technical Academy.
Ms. Sophia, I'm sorry, can you speak more into the microphone? That would help. Thank you.
I'm writing because I need you to understand that the last minute cancellation due to my students. I oversee both mechanical technology and welding program at East Tech. And for weeks, I watched these kids build something that meant the world to them. They plan every detail themselves. They handle communication, scheduling, safety, vendors, contracts, all of it. I stepped back on purpose because this was supposed to be their event, not mine. They did everything right. The event was approved, the paperwork was done, contracts were signed, the date was set. Then 3 days before the show, everything was pulled out from under them. We weren't opening the shop, we weren't doing anything unsafe. Welding students were simply displaying the pieces they made, the art that they poured hours into. MedTech students were going to showcase the work that they've done and the skills that they practice every day. This wasn't just a fun event, this was our students showing their families and community what they learned and who they are becoming. It's hard to look a student in the eyes and just tell them that it's not happening anymore after all the work that they put into. What hurts the most is how preventable this was. If there were concerns that could have been brought up earlier, instead, the reversal that happened at the end had many students speechless. After spending countless hours preparing, they were excited, proud, motivated, but then they were blindsided. Our kids don't often get chances to shine publicly. Welding and MedTech aren't programs that get pep rallies, huge audiences, or weekly recognition. This was one of the times we were going to be in front of and center, showing the community what skills trades look like and why they matter. Many of these students plan to go into these fields. This was directly tied to their futures. Instead of celebrating their work, we had to turn it all over. I watch students who never complain, who work with their hands every single day, sit down and go quiet because they didn't know what they could have done differently. These students earn the right to show their work, and I hope the district will take the effort seriously to help us find a way to give them another opportunity they worked so hard for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. After Ms. Avilas, Ms. Atterbury. Ms. Cecilia, please proceed. Say your name for the record.
My name is Cecilia Vilas, and I'm the Vice President of Welding Club at East Korea Technical Academy. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our students, our instructors, and everyone who worked tirelessly to bring our fall car show to life. When we first decided to take on this event, it wasn't just because it sounded fun. It was because we truly believed in our program and in the community we have here at East Tech. Welding and mechanical technology aren't just classes for us. They're places where we can grow, where we feel confident, and where we learn to love the work we do. Many of our students can agree that these classes are extremely important to them. Most plan on pursuing a career involving either mechanical technology or welding. That's why the cancellation of our car show was so extremely discouraging. It was not simply the loss of an event, it felt like the loss of something that we poured our hearts into for weeks. To us, this cancellation felt like a slap in the face. It was not only extremely inconsiderate, but disrespectful. The mistreatment of our students compared to other programs, clubs, and schools is unfair and discriminatory. It was not only disrespectful to us as students, but to our staff as well. The cancellation undermines the entire point of hiring people for positions like the principal, activities officer, achievement coach, college and career readiness coach. We planned this car show with care and intention. We followed every CCSD policy, collected all contracts, used our club funds, and communicated with the staff whose job is to make sure every requirement was met and approve or deny events like this. We treated this project with the same level of professionalism and responsibility that East Tech expects from us as career and technical students. As an ECTA student, I, among my peers, feel very privileged. Our school encourages school involvement and community and inclusion. I never felt this was untrue until CCSD risk management stepped in only 3 days before our event to ultimately deny us simply because they saw the flyer. One would think that the flyer being spread and shared would be a positive thing, but it was only proof that when students put immense effort in publicating and encouraging the community to join us, it's in fact too dangerous. Now the damage that was done is irreversible. We lost trust within the community, and this damages our reputation of our students. It now makes us look irresponsible and takes value from our work. Our instructors, Mr. Centeno and Mr. Turley, supported this event because they believed in it. And I know that they would never approve anything that was not safe, educational, or meaningful for our campus. What makes this especially painful is that welding and mechanical technology students already feel overlooked compared to other programs. We see other clubs host events that showcase their creativity and innovation, and we celebrate that. But when we try to do the same, we are not given the same chance. We are not the only school who wanted to host a car show. In fact, a few other schools have done it, and successfully without these absolutely ridiculous limitations only we were given. Welding Club is more than an extracurricular. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Avilas. After you, Ms. Atterbury, Matthew Winterhoff, are you still in the audience? Okay. Ms. Atterbury, please proceed.
Funny Atterbury for the record, that girl is on fire. All right, so I know it wasn't covered today, but I just wanted to say something about the curricular resources regulation 6122 and 6124. Obviously, the lesson plans today are very complicated, and compared to what I remember when I was in the classroom. I was looking at some of the things that the teachers have been posting about and their frustrations and the different things that are going on. There's a lot of pressure for teachers right now with their daily instruction plans, outlining standards of concepts and skills, learning intentions aligned to standards in daily lessons, success criteria aligned in the learning intentions, along with CCSD standards, goals, pacing guides, teacher clarity guides, and instructional materials. This kind of planning seems extreme to some of these poor teachers that are just trying to get their kids to learn how to read, write, and do math. So I can understand some of their frustrations. I just wanted to read a post from one of the teachers because I felt it kind of summed up everything. It says, how many teachers are feeling ineffective this year? I teach first grade, and this is my 3rd year in grade level. But for the first time, I feel like what I'm doing just isn't working. I'm doing everything I've always done, but my students just aren't responding. They aren't comprehending, they aren't applying skills, and it feels like nothing is sticking. It's not just in reading, it's math, science, social studies, even something as simple as forming basic sentences. My whole team feels the same way. As a grade level, we feel ineffective and like we're not capable of doing our jobs the way we want to. We want to slow it down and really work on comprehension across the board. But we feel lost on how to do that when pacing is always such a pressure. Our admin is big on staying on the pacing guide. our admin keeps encouraging us and saying we're doing a great job, but as a team, we still feel so helpless. Is anyone else experiencing this right now? I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand to keep teachers in mind. It is very hard to stand up in front of a classroom and teach with all of these things that are going to be put pressure on you. And when you see kids that are not literate or they're moving on without the skills that they need to move on to the next grade level, I can imagine how frustrating it is for the teachers today, especially when I'm looking at all their expectations and everything they have to read through and organize just for a day of time for them. So I can understand the frustration. I wanted to read that post to you because I want you to keep teachers in mind when you're thinking about these pacing guides. They're a guide. They shouldn't be concrete. And the teacher should have the ability to adjust when they see a group of their kids not being successful. I think they need a little bit more guidance on alleviating some of that pressure. All right, so keep teachers in mind. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. After Mr. Winterhoff, our last person will be Dr. Beagle. Mr. Winterhoff, please proceed.
Matthew Winterhawk for the record. Trustees, Superintendent Hebert, how are we doing this evening? It's holiday season's going on right now, and I had a whole lot to say while I was sitting there, and then that man came up with the child who's autistic with yet another incident when there were over 100 active lawsuits against this school district. And I was thinking, wow, I think I don't have anything else to say because it said yet again. And I believe within the last 3 days, they referenced a case where a man had sexually assaulted, as a teacher, 2 different female students. I believe one was pregnant. Could be wrong. That's what the media states. And we're worried about the safety of a car show. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just disappointed. 100% disappointed. Billions and billions of dollars. $10 billion, I think I saw in that report. This is the outcome. 283,000 students, is that right as well? Possibly. I don't know. It all requires their weighted averages, doesn't it, to keep this budget going, whether or not they're getting federal funding. How many more free lunches, how many more autistic students, how many special needs students. We're surely not serving them with the people that we brought in here when we have children being assaulted, whether it be sexual, physical, emotional, or otherwise. I just don't know how we sit up on boards and we watch budgets go by. We just continue to throw billions of dollars. And we remain dead last, 5th largest school district in the United States, and nearly dead last. And you have to switch metrics and change everything and hide students in order to make your ratings better. It's embarrassing, is it not? I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. You can have your last minute, but I'm disappointed. Completely disappointed.
Thank you. Dr. Beagle?
Good evening, Tiffany Beagle for the record. I wanted to talk about fundraising, but it feels like kind of bleak in comparison to what happened to that sucks so bad. We have had fundraising issues at my school with regard to being able to collect digital payments. Back in the day when Square and Apple Pay and all those things first started, we could easily use a school-created Apple Pay for kids and parents to be able to pay. I don't know about you guys, I don't carry cash anymore because why? So like the only way that I can pay for things is Apple Pay or a credit card. Our credit card machine is currently super slow because we are still in modernization and we don't have our Wi-Fi 100% up and working yet. So when we had our this is so bad taste. When we had our festival on Wednesday night, it took almost an hour just to get people checked in and be able to buy tickets to participate in our 2-hour-long festival because our credit card machine was so bad. So I think that we need to look at maybe a possible way to accept funding on campuses that doesn't involve just cash and credit card machines, which also charge money, whereas like a Venmo or Cash App or Apple Pay, they don't charge necessarily as much money to the school. You also have to consider if you're like, oh, we'll just put it in an ATM. Well, that ATM is not only charging the kid, the bank is charging the kid as well to use the ATM. So it's not really a fiscally responsible thing to just put it in ATM so kids have access to cash. Another issue that I wanted to talk about really quickly was that our district is super admin heavy, and when those administrators are retaliatory, it's a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. If you are not privy to what is happening at certain elementary schools on the west side of town with regard to retaliatory admin, you really need to start paying attention to what teachers are saying, because it's very sad, it's disheartening. And 21 years in this district, I've dealt with my fair share of bad and retaliatory administrators, and to have an administrator like literally tell the fellow administrators at the school that they're gonna go after this person until they force them to quit is just heartbreaking. We don't have enough teachers for that kind of nonsense. The last thing I'm gonna touch on, my husband and I are CASA. CASA is a court-appointed special advocate for foster children. My foster kid, without getting into it too much, is at a local high school. When I went with my order from the judge to go find out about my foster kid, I was told by the registrar that my orders from the judge were not sufficient enough to get information about my child. Now, here's the problem. An order from a judge is an order from a judge, and a registrar is not supposed to be the barrier between me and finding out what's going on with my kid. I then get a letter a month later saying that my kid is almost denial of credit because of absences, where I can't go in and find out what's happening to my foster kid because your registrars don't know what an order from a judge means. It's super frustrating. When I went to Department of Human Services about it, the social workers having issues with the same school, it is not a good vibe. You need to train your people how to deal with foster kids, because those are the most vulnerable kids in our district and they need the most help.
Thank you so much. That ends 5.01. Would like to, before we move on to 6.0, I do want to just acknowledge our board liaison team, beginning with Mr. Caruso, Ms. Caitlin, Ms. Nora, Lisa, Ms. Marissa. Who am I forgetting? Jones. Yeah. And Rita. Yes, I know that we are a handful. I know that we are a lot, all 11 of us, but you treat us with such professionalism, such grace, such dignity, and we're grateful for that. So I just want to acknowledge you guys individually and say thank you on behalf of the team. So thank you. Vice President Zamora, are we ready for 6.0? Oh, yeah, 6.01. Upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees will be Wednesday, January 7th at 2026 at 4 p.m. in this boardroom. I will now go to item number 7.0. Vice President Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. As we are wrapping up the year, I definitely want to take a moment to also thank our tech team. This is our last board meeting. Without our tech team, I don't think we will survive. So thank you to everyone. I know we have other people in the other room. And then I want to take a moment to also thank our ASL interpreters, because they all year round are doing everything, and I enjoy peeking over and catching some attitudes too that happen. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I asked my colleagues if we can give them a round of applause at this moment, please. And now I would like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Thank you. I have a first from by Vice President Zamora, Trustee Cavazos.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. Thank you. That motion passes 7-0. That's our last meeting for the year. Thank you so much.